There is an opportunity to create a new set of unicorns, just like you said, right? But there's also an opportunity to create a whole new set of niche players as well, smaller players that can be successful as well. Because today, anybody can write their piece of software. So you understand the business, you see the problem, you can create your software, you don't have to be a software engineer. So you're going to see all these smaller players come up and a lot more innovation.
네, 이번에 또 귀한 분을 모셨습니다. 이 책 저자분인데요. 이 책의 저자가 맞으시죠?
Yes, I am Anu Ramraj and the co-author of this book.
책 네임이 When AI Robots Knock.
Absolutely, yes.
예, 이게 한국에는 나오지 않았는데 이 귀한 책을 저에게 이렇게 사인을 해주신 저자님이십니다. 너무 감사합니다. 우선 소개를 간단히 이름 해주셨는데 좀 자기소개 경력까지 좀 들어보고 싶습니다.
Anu Ramraj, currently the CEO and founder of Walsey, looking to transform vital records management in the US. Formerly a partner at Pricewaterhouse, and about 25 years of experience in the cloud and AI industry.
그러면 이제 여쭤볼게. PwC 파트너에다가 HP, 유니시스, 그러니까 대형 빅테크 기업에서 클라우드 AI 경험을 거쳐서 여기 창업하게 되신 계기가 뭔가요?
I'm fortunate in my 24-year industry career to be ranked a top 25 global transformation leader. So I was working with some of the largest Fortune 500 companies on transformations. But with Walsey, I see an opportunity, IG, to really make an impact for every individual. And that's what made me kind of jump off the nest, give up my corporate career and found Walsey. Especially the underserved, like the homeless, foster kids, seniors, Walsey can make a big impact for them.
이게 딸과 함께 창업도 하고 책도 쓰셨었는데 이게 좀 독특한데 이게 좀 어떤 점이 좀 특별했는지 좀 알고 싶거든요.
It is working with your daughter brings like a intergenerational perspective. We don't ever see things the same way.
그러면 많이 싸웠겠는데요.
Yes, we did. Right? So when we wanted to write the book, my daughter didn't want to do it because she said the Gen Z don't read books. And then I had to convince 25 experts to give opinions for the book. But the toughest one was convincing my daughter to be the co-author. And then when it comes to Walsey as well, I look at it from the perspective of more mature individuals, seniors, and how do we solve the problem for them, while my daughter is always bringing in like the youth perspective. How does it solve the problem for somebody that's a college kid that's looking for the first job? And she's a national debater, so we debate, but in a good way.
그럼 이 책에는 어떤 내용들을 담으셨었나요?
So we looked at 9 different industries, including healthcare, law, government. We tried to reimagine what impact AI would have in that industry, say 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and then how that would impact jobs and what should students be studying so that they acquire the skills for the new opportunities.
안 그래도 이 책에서 보니까 AI 이제 그 9개 주요 산업대 일자리를 재정의했던데 어떻게 좀 재정의 했는지 좀 우리 몇 가지 들어볼 수 있을까요?
For example, in the field of law, AI is being used today for a lot of the research, right? So that is already happening today. But we try to look into the future and to see like, would AI even get into decision making, right? Could a lawyer be replaced by AI?
그러면 뭐 이 법률 쪽 말고 혹시 다른 직업 중에서도 좀 어떻게 다르게 재정이 되는 것도 하나 좀 더 들어볼 수 있을까요?
The arts.
Arts.
Another amazing field which is going to transform. We spoke to an Academy Award-winning director, and we talked about, he had a story, like he was looking for a script for he had done like a best-selling movie, a very top movie, and he wanted to do a sequel, and he was looking for a script. And he talked about how his cook was able to write that script using AI.
Yes.
right? So it provides opportunity. Think about music being produced by AI, and now we also have full movies that only have AI actors in them. Will they become popular? Will that transform the industry? What about the big production houses? How do they need to transform? Because now you can do more with less using AI agents.
아까 그 클라우드 AI 클라우드와 연결을 좀 해보자면은 제 이제 궁금증은 뭐냐면 이렇게 되면 사람이 기억하고 사람이 일하던 것들을 이제 다 클라우드 데이터에 저장을 하고 데이터를 활용하게 되면은 이쪽 시장이 헤비해지거나 이제 엄청나게 성장할 것 같은데 어떻게 보시는지 좀 궁금하거든요.
Great question, IG, because the pace of change is amazing, right? We talked about entrepreneurship in the book as well. So it is easier to be an entrepreneur now because you do not need to hire a huge workforce. You could have agents support you in different functions. Say a marketing agent, a sales agent,
Yes,
a support agent, etc. Even a coding agent, of course. But the fact that you can disrupt means that you can also be disrupted quicker. Right? Actually, they're talking about in Silicon Valley especially, can there be a unicorn
Yeah.
with just a single founder and no employees? Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
동의해요.
Which is scary, right? It's
Yeah.
not good. It's not good because we want lots of people to get jobs in those unicorns. But again, that is also a sign of the speed of change and the pace of change that's coming.
이렇게 되면은 이제 우리가 앞으로 갈수록 그 클라우드 AI 데이터 센터라 해야 되나? 여기에 대한 의존도가 나날이 커질 수밖에 없겠네요.
That is also true. That is also very true. Which has got its own positive and negative aspects of it. We've seen IG the huge growth, the huge demand for computing power and chips, which again leads to like some scarcities that we never thought about. Like now, water has become a scarce commodity because you need water for cooling those data centers. So it is creating a disproportionate impact on the environment with the demand for power and cooling. But it is also giving tremendous opportunity for the folks that want to be entrepreneurs, want to disrupt, want to create more using AI. So there is both pros and cons.
이제 궁금했던 게 저는 이제 제가 유튜버를 하다 보니까 이런 경우가 있더라고요. 조회수가 잘 나오는 영상도 있지만 조회수가 안 나오는 영상도 있는데 이 안 나오는 영상들을 구글 입장에서는 이걸 델리트 하고 싶은데 이게 델리트를 하지 못하면은 저장을 하나 차지하게 되는 것들이 굉장히 많아서 유튜브도 이 비용이 엄청나게 들어간다라고 말하더라고요. 근데 이제 말한 대로 이제 클라우드 시장이 커지게 되면은 모든 데이터를 다 집어넣게 되면은 점점 이 쌓여가는 데이터는 늘어나는데 안 쓰는 것들도 그러니까 불필요한 데이터들이 좀 많아지지 않을까. 그렇게 되면서 이게 코스트가 올라가는 상황이 되지 않겠나 생각하는데 어떻게 보시는지 궁금해요.
I think actually you're hitting on a very, very important problem, which is data management, especially with social media and, as you said, YouTube and Insta and TikTok. There's just so much content out there, and again, data. There is good data and bad data, right? And sometimes there's different angles to it. One is the whole angle about, like you said, data storage and data management, which is important. But even more important is like trust in the data. Now there's so much content out there, IG, that we don't know what content to trust, especially when that content is not generated by humans like you, but actually is AI generated content. That becomes even more scary because it's easier to do more propaganda.
그래서 금융 사기도 많이 일어나고 있어요. 실제로 저를 사칭한.
They created an AI version of you, a deep fake of you. That is scary, yes. And you're going to see more and more of it. Now the technology is such that you could probably figure it out, but as the technology matures, it's going to be even more difficult to know which is the real IG and which is the deep fake IG. I think the same problem is with documents. It is so hard to say which is real, which is fake. And that is one of the challenges we're trying to solve with WALL-Z, because I can produce a degree certificate that says Anu went to the same college as IG. It is just one prompt away from doing that, right? And then how do you trust those? And that's where I think you need more human in the loop with systems like notaries and then anchoring on blockchain. And that's what we're trying to solve. So trust in the data is going to become even more important going forward.
제가 이번에도 여기 오면서 인터뷰를 잡으려고 장소를 한번 구해보려고 젠스파크를 활용하다가 위워크 예약을 이렇게 하려 했더니 저한테 뭘 승인을 해주면 AI가 알아서 전화해서 위워크에 전화해가지고 예약을 잡아주겠다는 거예요. 근데 그거 보면서 와, 내가 얘한테 뭔가 정보를 하나씩 주기 시작하면은 에이전트 AI가 다 하는 시대가 열리겠구나. 그러니까 엄청 편하다와 엄청 무섭다를 동시에 느꼈거든요.
It is scary, IG. I mean, it is powerful, but scary. I'm trying to do like demo videos, right? I can now create them in any language, and with the LLMs translating, you and the accuracy is going up. That is going to become even more and more easier to do, right? We could do an audiobook in Korean without me speaking any Korean, right? But it is scary that if somebody took your voice IG, which has its own, I would say its own IP, because you are a famous YouTuber, and then they started misusing it, then that is scary.
지금 유튜브에서 그렇게 해서 아까 금융 사기를 하고 있어서
And create deep fakes that look exactly like your videos, right? Yeah. And I think one of the things that we have to do, we have to educate, especially the youngsters, on being, just like when social media came, we kind of had to educate people on what to put on social media, what not to put on social media. We have to now teach people what to trust and what not to trust.
이제 뭐 사람은 결국 편리한 거를 원하는 쪽으로 가다 보니까 아무리 이 리스크가 있다 하더라도 결국 사람들이 에이전트 AI한테 뭐 금융에 대한 패스워드라던가 이런 것들을 그냥 알려주고 그래야 이체도 할 수 있고 결제도 할 수 있고 이게 더 편리해지기 시작하겠더라고요. 그렇게 돼서 아마 그런 상황이 벌어질 수도 있다 생각하는데 이거 어떻게 생각하시는지 좀 궁금하거든요.
We quoted Sal Khan, who's the founder of Khan Academy in this book. I think one of the biggest things about AI, the biggest benefits of AI, is that now everybody can have their own coach. So where Sal was going is that everybody can have their own personalized teacher, but if you expand that, everybody can have their own personalized financial advisor without actually paying somebody. Right? They could also have their own personalized insurance advisor. They could have their own personalized estate planning advisor. But the flip side is that now if your advisor is an agent, you're exposing all your data to the agent, and then security becomes so important. And I think that goes back to your question. We have to figure out AI security, and then people have to know that they cannot put sensitive data into a public LLM. I'm still surprised, IG, that people will take like their documents with their social security numbers and feed it to ChatGPT. I'm sure like even in Korea, the same situation with seniors especially. And that's why we're trying to solve that by saying, keep it in a secure vault, use a private LLM, don't use the public ChatGPT for your AI agents and advice.
그러면 이 발찌는 어떤 사업을 하고 있는 건가요?
So we combine digital storage for your most vital records. Think of it like your bank locker, but digital. And then combine that with the AI agent that knows exactly where you are and can give you the right advice. It can remind you like your passport is expiring and IG you need to travel. Or it can remind you that the tax deadline is coming up and you haven't filed your taxes. So based on your documents and based on where in life you are, it can give you the right advice. And then we combine it with blockchain so that when you notarize something, we know it hasn't changed because we anchor it on blockchain. So we're combining trust in documents with like an agent that helps people with their documents.
에이전트 AI 시대가 올수록 사람들은 이 시크릿 정보들을 계속 이제 넣을 수밖에 없게 되는 건데 그거에 대해서 어떤 이제 안전성을 제시하는 솔루션이라 볼 수 있겠네요.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. So think again like your bank locker.
Yeah.
Only you have the keys to it, and the data that is stored in your Walsey account is only for you, not shared with anybody else. But we also allow legacy planning. So if something were to happen to me, then my husband would be able to get to my document.
되게 중요한 것 같아요.
Yes, yes. And yeah, especially in an emergency, right? Like if you were to be in a hospital and suddenly somebody needs access to your document.
들어보니까 이 결론은 뭐냐면 시대가 이렇게 변하는데 어쨌든 갈 수밖에 없고 그거에 대한 새로운 솔루션의 시장들이 열릴 수밖에 없다 이렇게 볼 수 있겠네요.
That is very true, Ajay. I think we have a I think once in a lifetime opportunity to look at the way problems were solved before and now to bring a new lens with these newer technologies, especially with agentic AI, with blockchain maturing, and see is there a different way to solve the same problem. Like, I mean, even simple things like seniors struggle to complete applications. Could we have like an agent like OpenClaw go in and with all the data help them complete the application?
제가 작년에 왔을 때만 하더라도 AI 쪽에서는 하드웨어 관련된 그런 이야기들이 많았었는데 이제 이번에 와서 느낀 거는 AI와 관련된 서비스들이 이제 탄생하고 그런 기업들이 이제 지금 조금씩 보이기 시작하더라고요. 그래서 큰 이유를 좀 알 수 있을까요?
I think these opportunities are opening up globally. With Silicon Valley, I think it's the ecosystem. We have a lot of accelerators. People are very open about sharing ideas and debating ideas. And there is the ecosystem of the VCs that is built in here that is willing to support ideas that are like that at first glance might seem like too far out, but they're willing to take a risk and support those ideas.
벌치 이거를 창업해야 되겠다라고 낸 그 생각하게 된 계기가 있을 것 같은데.
Actually, I learned through the state leaders about a problem that affects foster kids, how they sometimes go from one home to another home with all of their belongings in a pillowcase, and nobody really maintains their documentation because they get handed off between caseworkers and foster homes. And I was fortunate enough, IG, to have taken a design thinking class at Stanford Graduate School of Business. And so I put on my design thinking hat and said, how could we solve this problem? And what are the newer ways to solve it with these technologies maturing? And then I quickly realized that it affects all individuals, not just foster kids.
제가 이제 좀 조언을 좀 듣고 싶은 게 이렇게 AI 흐름에서 이런 사업을 하면 돈을 벌겠다라는 거를 발견한 능력이 제가 너무 존경스러워서 혹시라도 다른 사업을 하나 한다면은 좀 어떤 사업을 할 수 있는지 좀 보신 게 있는지 궁금합니다.
I think I think there's a huge opportunity to look at like pretty much the entire application stack. Like you said, there's been so much focus on the building blocks of which is the AI infrastructure, the data centers, and the chips. I think we're just now unlocking the next layer, which is like the applications. Right. So there's a huge opportunity there to even look at existing applications and look at existing apps and see what can be changed. There's so many. I mean, the saying is that AI is going to eat SaaS for breakfast. You've probably heard about that. So even some of the legacy, I wouldn't call them legacy, but even the more front-running software providers, there's an opportunity now to disrupt them, right? To look at it in a new way. So think Salesforce, think ServiceNow. And at the same time, there's also the whole AI trust layer that needs to be then established. So you have the infra, the applications, but it's not going to work without the trust. How do you prove identity for agents? How do we know it was IG that created that agent, and so I can trust it? So there's going to be enormous opportunity in that trust layer as well, because all of that has to be rethought. So I would say if somebody is in South Korea, they should be thinking about the apps they use every day and what can be different, and then thinking about what needs to be built in that trust layer.
아무리 AI 어플리케이션을 만들어도 만약에 혹시 이런 그런 뭐 클로드나 이런 뭐 오픈 뭐 챗 GPT나 이런 데서 또 만드는 경쟁자가 굉장히 빠르게 탄생할 거 아니에요. 그럼 그것들을 이겨내는 전략들을 어떻게 좀 준비하신 게 있는지 궁금해요.
Actually, we talked about this in that the pace is only going to get more accelerated, right? So you can disrupt, but you can also be disrupted quicker. I think the way to build a moat is to again build the more you can build systems that people trust. That is what is going to be the biggest factor, right? People will pick systems they trust and stay with those systems without switching. Right? It's for example, it's very hard to get people to put their most critical documents into a digital locker like Walsey. We have to make sure that we have user privacy and we don't sell the data and we earn the customer's trust. But once we have it, they're less likely to switch.
수많은 의류 브랜드들이 있지만 사람들이 그냥 나이키를 많이 쓰는 이유는 나이키 하면 나이키가 하는 그 기본적인 디자인, 품질에 대한 트러스트, 신뢰가 있기 때문에 하는 거랑 똑같은 이유를 볼 수 있어요.
Exactly. It's like you build a brand and the brand is trusted and that is going to create that is the value that you have to keep. But you have to keep up the trust, right? You have to stay accountable. You have to make sure there's no bias in your data, right? You have to make sure that data security is most important, and you have to keep innovating. Even Nike has to keep innovating.
예, 그러면 지금 이 AI 소프트웨어 시장이 앞으로 이제 얼마나 성장할 거라 보시는지 궁금해요.
I believe this is like it's $1 trillion market. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to disrupt. It's a multi-trillion-dollar market. It's a once in a lifetime, and it's a global opportunity. So you could, I mean, even if the problem is solved in one country, if it's not solved in another one, there might be a different way to bring a flavor to a different country. So, for example, like our solution, we see like digital lockers in Singapore. Singapore has a SingPass. We saw one in UAE. UAE has a United Arab Emirates has a UAE pass. But there's an opportunity to create one that's unique to the US with Walsey, and then maybe there's a South Korean version that we should think about, right? So
이런 경험을 20년 전에 해봤던 게 스마트폰이라는 게 나오고 나서 갑자기 페이스북이 너무 유명해지고 관련된 빅테크들이 더 탄생했던 것처럼 이번에 AI의 시작이 이런 또 새로운 빅테크들의 세상이 열릴 거다라 보시는 거네요.
I think yes, there is an opportunity to create a new set of unicorns, just like you said, right? But there's also an opportunity to create a whole new set of niche players as well, smaller players that can be successful as well. Because today, anybody can write their piece of software. So you understand the business, you see the problem,
Yeah.
you can create your software. You don't have to be a software engineer. So you're going to see all these smaller players come up and a lot more innovation. Just like YouTube, with YouTube,
Yes.
IG didn't have to go to a big studio to get 1 million followers, more than 1 million followers. So if you understand the problem and you find a solution, you publish it to the App Store, maybe you get 1 million downloads. It's a massive opportunity.
여기서 궁금한 거 이제 뭐 저희 창업자들이 많다 보니까 이 여성 창업자 하면서 또 이제 이민을 또 오셔가지고 실리콘밸리에 이제 활동하면서 어쨌든 이 미국 시장에서 성공을 했잖아요. 그러면 여기서 내가 성공할 수 있었던 비결이 무엇이라 생각하는지 궁금합니다.
Actually, I'm still early in my journey, to be honest, and looking for all the support to scale and counting on your support as well. But I think, especially as a woman and an immigrant founder, I think you have to be very resilient. You're going to hear a lot of no's, but doesn't mean that you give up. And I think your strength is that you have a unique perspective because of your background as an immigrant and a women founder. And you have to stay true to that perspective to succeed. And then find somebody that challenges you like my daughter challenges me. I'm not minimizing it, especially from a women founder perspective. The statistic based on PitchBook, I believe, is that if it is an all-women founding team, less than 2% of them get funded, right? So we know the odds, and we're trying to beat the odds.
그래서 이게 한국에는 많은 미국 주식 투자자들이 있고 나날이 늘어났는데 막상 그 기업들은 대부분 실리콘밸리에 있더라고요. 그래서 이제 실리콘밸리에 투자하는 한국 사람들에게 조언 한마디 부탁드리도록 하겠습니다.
I would say I think this year especially is going to get a lot of attention with some of the IPOs that are stated to happen this year. I mean, the big names are already out there, the SpaceXs, the OpenAIs. Definitely, I know folks in Korea and around the globe are chasing those, which is one strategy. And again, a very good strategy. But I would say also look out for the hidden gems, right? Think about the next layer of applications that need to get built, the next layer of AI trust that needs to be established. They say, like in ice hockey, you always have to kind of know where the puck is going, as they call it in ice hockey, and then predict where it's going and skate to it. So while these are great, I think kind of look further down the horizon, and hopefully the book helps with that, and see where the puck is going and then kind of skate to it.
정말 짧은 시간이었지만 대화해 보면서 투자자들에게 좀 깨달음을 힌트를 주는 시간이었습니다. 너무 감사하고 이 QR 코드는 어떤 의미인가요?
I would want folks to try out our Walsey app, right? The trial is open, yes, so definitely try it out and give us feedback. It's on the App Store, and the book is on Amazon, and we'll get it translated into Korean soon, yes.
네.
We'll work with IG to get it translated in Korean.
알겠습니다. 오늘 너무 귀한 시간 내주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.